Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, here with my guy out in Long Island, Mr. Richard Dorney III, devout Mets
What's up, kid?
fan, devout ball breaker of many a Yankee fan. Welcome. Good to see you here, bud. It's been far too long. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Busy. I'm excited. Baseball season is upon us. My Mets have reported in to Port St. Lucie. Philly fans show what Philadelphia is really like once again after the Super Bowl. And we get to move on from the inevitable and now head to baseball.
Yeah, I'm not going to start without addressing that, Rich. We've seen championship parades in our city. What is it about that particular city where they just have to constantly trash the joint? What is it?
It's those horse meat sandwiches that they eat with the cheese whiz on it.
Yes.
It's caused them to lose control. I don't know. They're just terrible fans across the board. I don't understand it. And now they've embraced it, with that everyone hates us, we don't care song that they sing consistently. My favorite is the compilation reels of all of those Eagles fans trying to spell the Eagles, EAG, and it's always wrong, and they just consistently go and go and go.
Yeah, I got to say I was a little humored that the mayor actually was starting the Eagles chant, and she started off by messing up the spelling, I think on letter 3. So I was like,
Yeah,
well,
sounds about right.
all right, moving along. I know how he feels about Philadelphia, but they're a team that's definitely going to be in your way this year. You're the Met fan. You are the biggest Met fan I know, and you during the course of the regular season contribute quite a bit when you can. What are your thoughts on the additions? Obviously, Juan Soto, just a massive plate presence, a very intimidating guy, no matter how good of a pitcher you are. Really knows how to just flat out get on base. If he's in a slump, he's still going to draw the walks. Some skepticism about how good of a fielder he is, but the bottom line is the New York Mets did not bring that man in worried about his arm or his glove. It's what he can do with a baseball bat in his hand and how he can enhance that lineup. So your thoughts, Rich? You scored a big prize in the offseason.
Uh, First and foremost, with all due respect, I say it is the first time in my life that it felt good to be a Met fan because I didn't feel like we took a second backseat to the Yankees in any way. Um, all jokes aside about what the Yankees lost out on, I think for me, being a Met fan, having to deal with the Fred and Jeff Coupon for all those years,
The coupons.
And being a laughing stock mostly because of the people that ran the organization. The thing that's come out of the signing of Soto that has made me the happiest, and now if you just saw with Stanek, the reliever that we brought in, he said a very similar thing, that there's a really good feel to the organization, that there's a family feel, that they're taking care of the players' families while they're there. And for me, it shows that this is an ownership that's committed to a fan base and that's committed to keeping these players here, right? And Soto is what we need him to be. He's going to come in here and hit home runs and put up RBIs and provide protection for the rest of the lineup because just like Soto had a great year because no one was pitching to Judge or vice versa, it's going to be a similar thing here. Pete's on my back right now. I'm happy that he's back. Projected lineup of Lindor as a leadoff guy. I mean, you saw if Ohtani didn't exist last year, you will agree with me. Francisco Lindor, landslide MVP in any other season.
Yeah. It was just the wrong year to have the kind of year he had. I agree with you on that. I do.
I mean, and not being a Met homer by saying this, but if you take the words at their literal meaning, I think Lindor was more of a most valuable player to his team than Otani was to the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are, a video game lineup, and at any given day, someone's winning the game for them. Lindor put that team on his back. Gary Cohen said it best, from 0-5 to OMG. That team turned around after a clubhouse meeting with just players, and whatever Lindor said to them, he backed it up. And for me, one of the sweetest, greatest baseball memories I will have for the rest of my life is watching him hit that grand slam against the Phillies. I screamed so loud my 3-year-old got upset, and it was a good year. It was a great way to end up. I mean, Soto after that, I'm a happy man.
Yeah, I think if there's any questions with regard to what the Mets can do, I think it was important to bring back a quality arm. You did lose Severino to the Athletics. I personally think the Athletics overpaid. Good for Severino. Um, I was a fan of his during his time in the Bronx. I'm happy that he was able to get back on track with your team, and now he got the money. The A's need to make a couple of splashes with the city change. Um, Clay Holmes in the mix to be a starter, I do find interesting. That I must admit, I do find interesting, but I think it was proven last year that his closing days needed to be over, whether he's employed by your team, my team, or anyone else in MLB. Lindor, I share your sentiments, Rich. Last year, he did most definitely put that team on his back. And to your point about the Dodgers having all the depth, the 50-50 season that Otani did was legendary, no question about it. But if you revisit last year's World Series, it was proven that the Los Angeles Dodgers can be just as effective without an effective Shohei Otani. I thought the New York Yankees did a decent job, keeping Otani in check. I thought Aaron Boone did a horrific job.
How is that guy still running the ship?
I'm not a big Boone fan. Most people who follow my show know that.
He wasn't even a
I
great
could
player.
just never justify walking Mookie Betts with the numbers that Cortez had against him, and then being stubborn and just assuming that the lefty-lefty matchup is better. Betts never had a hit over Cortez, I should say. The Verdugo play on Otani, first pitch out. You couldn't ask for a better start to an inning. Why chance it? If you're going to lose the ball game the right way. But I am happy with Devin Williams. I know that some Met fans are going to be chirping because Devin Williams was partially responsible. The other part was Pete Alonso in extending the Met season, because you guys were very close to not making that magic happen against the Phillies.
Yeah, I
Pete
mean,
came up so big in that moment.
there's only 2 or 3 closers in all of baseball history that have ever been, lights out. And he's great. He's definitely probably the top. Diaz might be able to make it a better season this year and come back some, but he's definitely the best part of what's happened for your offseason as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think he's by far the best acquisition that your team made.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about what the Yankees have done in lieu of losing Juan Soto. I would have liked to see us get a more notable third baseman, potentially put Jazz at third. One thing that Yankee fans are going to hope for is that DJ LeMahieu could have a bit of a career renaissance. I don't think the Yankees expect him to be an everyday guy, but you want him to at least mirror what he was a couple of years ago. I think Jazz, considering that he never played the third base position consistently, he did a hell of a job at third. We lose Gleyber Torres, not overly concerned about that. And by bringing in Bellinger, the Yankees get more reputability at the top of the order, something that I think has been a problem with Yankee teams over the course of the last 5 to 6 years, not having a true guy that could potentially be a leadoff man if called upon. I think the acquisition of Bellinger gives them more credibility in the outfield. And you could kind of be a little more patient with Jason Dominguez now. I think Dominguez personally is more comfortable in center than in left. But it looks like Judge is back in right. He's going to drop down a spot in the order to 3 with the Soto absence. And I would have to think that Big G is going to be right in the middle of that lineup. And, for as much shit as that guy has gotten, and some of it is well earned, he has had some big time postseason moments. And, last year, he just really caught some fire. So I don't think it's an end all be all depression that the Yankees lost such a phenomenal player, because when you're willing to pay a man as much as Steve Cohn did and Hal came up a little short, you can fill out a lot of roster spots. And I personally think it shouldn't come down to losing a guy like that for the Yankees to fine-tune their bullpen, the bridge to get to the closer. I think Weaver dropping into the 8th inning is a quality situation. Loisiga is going to be one of the guys fighting for the 7th inning. I do like Tim Hill coming back as well. I think Tim Hill did good in high leverage situations, but it still comes down to the dog days of summer. Will Max Fried be that legitimate number 2? Because it certainly hasn't been Carlos Rodon. Luis Gil has a world of promise, but they are going to have that young man on innings restrictions due to the fact that he is still getting acclimated to playing the long season, and they're still trying to trade Marcus Stroman. Clark Schmidt logically will be your 5, but the Yankees definitely want to find a partner to move on from the Stroman contract.
What did I tell you when Marcus Stroman signed with the Yankees?
Oh, yeah, no surprises here, pal. No surprises here.
He's a locker room cancer. He complains that he accused the Cubs of being a racist organization. He made some comments about,
which I think is kind of laughable when you consider the reverence that Ernie Banks had in that city. That's a little ridiculous.
I might have been misconstrued. It might have been the Mets, but either way, you're looking at a guy who just never lives up to what it is. And if I remember correctly, I think he said that he would never play for the Yankees.
Yes, he did. Yes, indeed, he did. Ultimately, he came over. And I'll tell you the truth, man. When he didn't want no part of opening day last year, I feel that that's everything you needed to know coming into the year.
100%.
You take a guy like a Garrett Cole, like him or not. Garrett Cole, when he's not pitching, is always invested in the game. He's always willing to help his team in any way possible. He's willing to talk to anybody on that staff. And, a very accountable person, too, because he doesn't run when it's not his night. I'll give Cole that. He took a lot of heat for that little league blunder between him and Anthony Rizzo, and rightfully so. But, Garrett Cole, one thing I respect about him is that he doesn't run and hide when things are tough.
Well,
but, a lot of juice added to the Subway Series this year for sure. A lot of juice.
As much as I like to talk shit about the Yankees, I'm going to pay them some homage by talking shit about Marcus Stroman. For a guy who was a New Yorker born, right?
Yes,
grew
indeed.
up on Long Island, to turn down the opportunity to start opening day for the New York Yankees speaks volumes to the character of the person that you are, because you couldn't handle the pressure and you didn't want to do it and you let it be. And I was so thankful when he left the Mets, and I'm glad that at this point, he's going to be a 4th starter somewhere, and go into obscurity, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, I think it's the right move, because the thing is, dude, they got to figure out a way to part with it, even if they have to eat some money. But you don't want to hold up Clark Schmidt, who has shown promise. And to your point, the biggest problem, Stroman has some moments of brilliance, but I notice when things get tough, he looks to blame others, and he is very much so a me-first player. So I do take issue with that as well. You take guys that joined on, like I said, with Jazz. Jazz could naturally play the outfield. Jazz could play second. Never played third in his life. Gleyber Torres didn't want to make a sacrifice and move to third. He's no longer a member of the Yanks. And I think that any baseball team that's aspiring to win a world championship, number one, above all else, you got to move on from selfish players because the warts on will show at the worst possible time. So sayonara, Glaber, good luck in Detroit. But I'll be honest, I'm not going to miss the base running blunders. I'm not going to miss the piss poor fielding and just the lackadaisical nature of the mental errors. This is the big league. There is no excuse for some of the mental errors I have seen from Glaber Torres over the years. National Leagues will be loaded this year, Rich. I know how you admire that city of Philly, but the
They're
Phillies
my
do have a
biggest
very deep
concern in the
roster.
league. I think the Braves took a step back, losing Freed. I think that they're not going to be what they have been. Philadelphia, with the addition of who they traded from the Marlins, forget his name.
I know Scott went over to the
Jesus
Los Angeles
Luzardo,
Dodgers. Power hitter. I know
the
name
pitcher
slips me
from
at
the
the moment, but
Luzardo.
yes, they
They
they added the Phillies right now to me, outside of the Dodgers, are the biggest threat to the New York Mets.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, current Mets lineup, you have projected Lindor to lead off and continue to do that. You figure it's probably either Nimmo and Soto in the 2 hole and then flipped, right? I would think immediately thereafter, Pete, and then Vientos, and then it's a combination of Alvarez, McNeil, Jose Siri, who I believe you've probably seen more of him than I have.
yeah,
He's
Jose Siri is a quality ball player and a good get.
defense first guy.
And I have a high opinion of Mark Vientos. I think this is the year that he really grows as a player. I think he
I
made some
agree.
strides last year.
Could that's a pretty solid 1 through 5 with Vientos in the mix, and then the Mets re-signed Jesse Winker, who I think everyone agrees you love him when he's on your team, and he's just another asshole when he's somewhere else. So
Yeah, I tend to agree. And the Yankees have had players that kind of match that measurable. Now, I wanted to ask you this to your point about the Braves taking a step back. We know that Ronald Acuna Jr. unfortunately had a second knee procedure. Spencer Strider, one of the best in the game.
yeah, he went down.
How far out do you figure Strider before he returns again?
You got to assume at least first 2 months of the season, and how effective is he going to be even then thereafter? I mean, and even with Acuna, I mean, his game was predicated on speed. Power comes from the legs, so it could be a different look to that team.
Yeah, second knee procedure, the lower extremities are never easy to come back from, especially right after it. And that's part of the reason why I think Edwin Diaz might level up and get back to who he was prior to hurting himself in the World Baseball Classic. Because regardless of the sport, whenever you have a lower extremity injury, that first year is usually a feel out process, and you gotta get used to your body again. But I do think Diaz, when he is focused and on his game, is a top 5 closer in MLB. And I think that's one thing that both New York teams have an advantage on most is that they have guys that are going to be very efficient in the most critical innings. The Dodgers, my goodness, man, it's like, is there anything weak about this team at all? Like, you really have to dig and really search. It's scary. It's scary when you consider the kind of money that and the kind of star power they have. I mean, you essentially almost have an all-star at every position.
Well, the contract's up, I think, in another year or so. I assume that when the next CBA happens, the other owners at minimum will want to address how the Dodgers have circumvented the salary issues, let's say, because I can't imagine that they'll allow them to continue to defer billions of dollars in contracts moving forward and just collect all stars year after year after year, in their prime. At some point or another, that money's going to have to start getting paid out. So we'll see how long it lasts.
So my son runs in the room. He flexes on me. He doesn't close the door, and then he runs away. And Noah, you want to say hi to Uncle Dorney? We're doing a show, so just hi. What's up, buddy?
What's up, my man?
Yeah. Now remember, that can be misconstrued for rage too. So you gotta watch out, because we don't want to.
Creatine
before your baseball journey really takes full bloom, we don't want you to think that you've been taking shortcuts out there. You know what I'm saying, kiddo? McGuire borrowing Maris's bat, the audacity.
A younger, more ornery version of Dorney would point out to you that this is the same old Yankees fire and buying expiring players, past their prime with your new first baseman and even Belly. So
Belly, I actually think is going to contribute in a positive way. Goldie, the short right field porch definitely could be helpful. He is an upgrade defensively over Anthony Rizzo. I personally wanted Christian Walker. And I did want to say this. Arizona Diamondbacks, pitcher for pitcher, talking about just the starters, 1 through 5, I legitimately think you can make an argument that they might have the best pitching staff in all of Major League Baseball. However, with losing Walker, you have a phenomenal player in Corbin Carroll, but after Carroll, it's kind of slim pickings in that lineup, and they're going to have to master the art of winning a lot of low-scoring games, because I think the pitching's going to be there all year, assuming they stay healthy, but you still got to score runs. And I think the Diamondbacks are going to run into some frustration in that regard, because I just don't think they have enough pop in that lineup. They're going to have to find ways to manufacture runs. But, with the staff that they have together right now, they will be in the wild card hunt, I believe. But I think the National League East has the potential to send 3, undeniably. And I'm going to reveal my standings in just a moment. But give me a hot take, Rich. Who's your National League MVP? Way too early prediction.
I mean, he's going to go back to pitching this year, right?
Sure is.
So, I don't know. Can you be Cy Young and National League MVP? I guess.
I mean, why not? I mean, if it wasn't for this little midget, you could have been a Rookie of the Year and an American League MVP, but Yes, I'm still salty about 2017 voters. That was a big crock of shit. But no, Shohei definitely he just brings so much. But I'll tell you, man, like I get it. He's super talented, but I wouldn't be in a rush to have him pitch, considering that they're so loaded regardless. But
I agree with you, but I assume that his contractual obligations to himself, the things that he wanted, he didn't go there just to swing a bat, at least not for the first few years.
No, not by any means. And, it's insane, because when I saw the Ohtani contract a couple of seasons ago, I truly didn't think it was going to get broken that quickly. And, Juan Soto, I must admit, man, just a few minutes removed from Verdugo making the last out on our season, I did have a little bit of a fear that he was going to leave out. I mean, you got to give it to his team. They were able to get the maximum amount. And, Uncle Stevie, he got him. You got to give him the credit. Now it's time to see
the difference in the dollars. So, you want to discount what I said earlier about the change in the guard and how things are getting done in Queens. That's for you. If it makes you feel better and you can go to sleep and think it's the extra money, so be it. But I'm telling you that it had more to do with Alex Cohen being involved, right? Steve Cohen being involved. I mean, I was listening to ESPN New York, and they said, do you know how we've had this conversation? Do you know what Hal Steinbrenner's wife looks like? Could you pick her out of a lineup? I can tell you, I know who Alex Cohen is day in and day out, his wife, because she was involved and everything. And they made it a family press to get him in there. And it makes me the happiest. And you know
And
what?
I
As much as this is going to be a dig and you're going to laugh about this, for the first time in forever, I can tell you and everybody else and your 27 rings to go fuck yourself because I'm stoked for the season. I cannot wait
no, I
for
get it. I get it, but
and it's like the baseball gods did it on purpose, right? We have the Subway Series 4th of July weekend this year.
I'll be there.
Bring the Puerto
We'll be
Rican
there.
flag so we can shake it down for Lindor again.
Yeah, that was something. Yeah, that was wild. Francisco Lindor goes deep 3 times, outdoing Giancarlo Stanton, who went deep twice. Dorney and I were in the building in Citi Field for September 11th and September 12th. Aaron Judge played the heroics on the 11th, on the 12th, in addition to making TV. I don't get it. Whenever a famous Puerto Rican athlete that Dorney adores does something special, somehow, some way, this man always produces a flag. I don't know where they come from. He just has
Puerto
them on
Rican
deck.
flag.
And I'm looking at him with like this venom. And I'm like, dude, you're not even Puerto Rican. He's like, your grandmother is. She's not even a Met fan, but he's from the island. I'm like, all right, Rich. I get it. Jesus. But no, that was a comical moment. I think the reason why it was so funny is because I was talking hella shit on Lindor's average before that left the park.
Yeah, you just said it.
Like within seconds, literally within seconds of that happening. But
My
a
favorite
great
was
time.
when Lindor ran the bases and flexed on him.
Yeah, they were having some fun with each other. That was definitely a competitive home run derby going on between those two stars. It was a fun series. It really was. A lot of excitement. In my opinion, New York wins regardless because that's what it was really about. And, with the exception of a couple of assholes, I think the Mets and Yankee fans represented the city in an awesome way. My National League MVP, I actually think this could be the year that Lindor really capitalizes because of the fact that Soto brings that protection to the lineup. I mean, he certainly helped Aaron Judge last year. I think this year Lindor might be the grand recipient and possibly win the MVP, which he came so close to last year. Cy Young is always a crapshoot because you have so many great pitchers. And sometimes you always have that unaccounted person that you don't see having that kind of year. But
I'm hoping that there's still some pitching pieces here for my Metsies. There's a lot of talk about Dylan Cease and trying to get him out of.
Dylan Cease is very talented. I'm going to go name from the Mets past. Zach Wheeler for NL Cy Young this year. AL Cy Young, a guy that got close to doing it last year that I think could capitalize this year. I'm going to go Seth Lugo, with Garrett Cole being in the top 3 in vote getters. But I'm going to go Seth Lugo to not play the homer card. American League home run champion, I still have to be confident that should be Aaron Judge. In the National League, I'm going to call for a real weird stat line of a guy barely hitting above the Mendoza line. However, having a career best 53 home runs, I'm going to go with Kyle Schwarber to lead the National League in homers. Without further ado, here we go. I don't speak for Dorney. These are my predictions. The New York Yankees at 101-61 winning the American League East. I've got the Boston Red Sox 20 over 500, possibly a bit of a surprise in second. Toronto Blue Jays 89-73. And I want to also add to the fact that Don Mattingly might be responsible for over half those wins after they have that crummy start and finally realize that the best guy to manage the team is not currently the manager. Orioles lost a lot of talent. 88-74, still a difficult team to beat, but I have them definitely losing some steam. The Tampa Bay Rays, unfortunately, since that fiasco with Wander Franco and, with their limited budget, they're going to be playing at Steinbrenner Field this year, home games, 74-88 for those dudes. Rich, what are your thoughts here?
I think the Orioles probably do a little bit better than that. Everything else kind of lines up. I mean, the Orioles' core is unbelievable, and what they have coming up behind it is unbelievable. So
Well, I'm
what?
waiting for Jackson Holiday to take that next step. We'll see. Do you think I'm
Also,
buying a little too high on Boston?
no, I don't. I think that they've gotten some replacements in this year. What I was going to say to Baltimore is the good thing with the Orioles is that if they're in the mix, they have a lot of pieces they could trade away at the deadline, and
Well, most
maybe
definitely. And they have a very rich farm system right now where they can still make some moves.
I think they have the number one ranked or the number two ranked catching prospect.
Yes, they
You know,
do.
and then
Yes, they do.
they have like if not the best, one of the two best catchers.
Yeah, because
Right.
when you have Adley Rutschman, locking that down, that is a piece you could potentially move.
Yeah, Toronto. I think you might be buying high on Toronto. I just feel like the vibe there is that they're trying to win it with what they have, knowing that like I think Bo Bichette's already said he wants out. I think the days of them trying to stick it with Vladdy is gone. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Alonso and Vladdy switch jerseys after this season.
Yeah, yeah, we spoke about that off air, and it actually makes a lot of sense for both players and for both teams.
I think Pete's 27 home runs away from being the Mets all-time home run leader,
Catching the straw man.
and David Wright. Um, I think maybe we get next year out of him if all things go the way they're supposed to, and if he does really well this season, I don't think there's a chance you see him in a Mets uniform again, unless Vladdy's off the table completely. Um, I think that the more often than not, you need team chemistry and something to go right, and I just don't think Toronto's going to have that this year.
I'll be honest, I might be buying high on them. I called it last year. I was wrong. I think this is the year it happens. I see there, and everything you said about certain notable players getting moved on, possibly both of them, the second generation kids. This is my opinion of what Don Mattingly can do with less. I think Don Mattingly is well respected. I think being back in that American League East on the level, if he becomes the manager, will really motivate him because obviously his beloved New York Yankees are division rivals there. So we'll see. But it wouldn't shock me if I might be 7, 8 games off on the Jays. I will admit that I could be buying a little high there. American League Central, Kansas City Royals at 97 and 65. I've got the Cleveland Guardians as a very strong wild card, 95 and 67. The Tigers at 93 and 69. The Twins dead even at 500. And the Chicago White Sox, who should just stop being invited to even be a part of Major League Baseball, at 55 and 107. Just god awful. Just terrible. Terrible.
So I think that's pretty spot on. Those 1, 2, and 3 teams can change up any of that
Absolutely.
order.
It's very even. And I want to say this in the sake of the Jordan Patrick show. Fuck you, AJ Hinch. But they do have a nice budding team in Detroit. He is doing a good job there.
And to talk about the Kansas City Royals and your Cy Young pick, if anything in the last 10 years has broken my heart to watch him go on to be so good and know that the Mets couldn't get out of their own way, having him be a long relief guy and an occasional closer. And now Seth Lugo is a bona fide 1A. It just pisses me off.
Yeah. Yeah. And, he's going to be there. He's going to be in the mix. Garrett Cole's always in the conversation year in and year out. It's going to be interesting because the crazy thing about this division, regardless if I'm correct or if you flopped some of these spots around, I have all three of these teams making the playoffs, and I have all three of these teams as legitimate candidates to appear in the World Series. In my opinion, it's top heavy for sure because the White Sox are just so damn bad. And the Twins could just never seem to really get out of their own way. So that's kind of where I have it there. But any of these three teams making the ALCS would not shock me. American League West, team that I can't stand, the Houston Astros. I got them winning 100 games even, one behind the pace of my Yanks. The Sacramento Athletics. Dorney, is that where they play now? Where the hell do these guys play?
Yeah, I think it is. They have a patch on there now.
Oh, that's exciting. Rest in peace, Ricky Henderson. It breaks my heart that number one, we lost such a great player, but number two, like just months after, like that was the field was named after him. He was he played on a lot of places. Some people call him a mercenary. Some people weren't always happy with him. He played with your team. He played with my team. He played with the Red Sox. He played with a lot of people. But as far as I'm concerned, in between the lines, the greatest leadoff hitter in the history of baseball. But I do think these Sacramento Athletics are going to be a bit of a surprise in this division. The Texas Rangers, slightly removed from that World Series appearance, if they're going to do better than what I have them doing, I need to see a healthy Jacob deGrom for a full season, and I am not sure that that's going to happen. I don't wish it on him.
I love Jake, and I will always love Jake, but I think him and Maddox are going to pitch the same amount of innings this year.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Los Angeles Angels 77-85, nothing new there. Mike Trout needs to get out of town before he's too old. I definitely feel for him. One of the game's brightest stars. He's been hampered by injuries the last few years, but I'd like to see him get an opportunity. And I'll be honest, Rich, this might be a little bit of a far out reach, but your main rival in your division, I could potentially see as a partner in a trade to acquire Mike Trout for the right deal, because he has roots. He has roots in
Philly
that area in general.
Philly Skell is the words you were looking for.
You're not going to like this. Philadelphia Phillies at 101 and 61. This might surprise you a bit. I got the Braves edging you out for second, 97 and 65. Now, remember, they have the reigning Cy Young Award winner there, and I don't think that was an aberration. I think Chris Sale is back. New York Mets at 95 and 67. They will be a playoff team. They will be capable of doing some more magic in the postseason. Washington Nationals quietly improving, but no match for the top three in this division. And the Miami Marlins,
So I actually have the Mets going to at 97 and 65. That's what my projection is for the.
Oh, so we got the same record, just a different standing.
Yeah, I think if the Mets are, I think if the Phillies are far enough ahead of us where we're competing with the Braves, I think the Mets will make an acquisition if need be. I assume that we will be buyers on pitching at some point this season. The opposite of what you said about the Diamondbacks and having to win
yes
2-run games, the Mets are going to have to put up 7-8 runs a game. I think some of these starting pitchers are going to go 4-5 innings if we're lucky, and regularly give up 3 runs. I mean, if Senga comes back and is Senga of old, we have a bona fide.
Oh no, when Senga is healthy, he is definitely that dude. I don't question that.
Dorney really elevated his game last year, and I'm happy to have him back. But I just don't. I would have loved just one more. If it would have been, Monty, or if somehow we were in on Corbin Burns. The fact that we weren't in it also leads me to believe that Uncle Stevie's not just going to throw money at things. If it doesn't make sense long term, if it doesn't make sense for the amount versus what they're going to get out of it. So it kind of makes me happy to know that we're just not going to be paying extra for a name every year like some other teams from the other side of different borough.
You might get a charge out of this, or I might get a bird. It is what it is. The only reason why I got the Braves finishing ahead of the Mets, I got the Mets winning the season series against the Braves. But I got something weird going on with the Mets where they're going to either struggle unexpectedly against Juan Soto's original team or against the Marlins. The Mets have had a propensity for doing that. They have had a propensity for struggling against teams that we know they're superior to.
The Marlins have been a thorn in the Mets side since back when Reyes cost us a playoff berth.
Yes, yes, indeed. And
Iggy was still playing first base then.
and I want to make one thing clear. I don't think that this is a reflection whether they finish third or whatever, if I'm correct. I still think the Mets are capable to get to the Fall Classic. I want to make that clear. Because it's been proven over the last few years in baseball that wild cards with all the parity in MLB are very capable, especially when you have loaded divisions. And the National League, I might be buying high on the Braves. Maybe this is a year they missed the playoffs. But I'm going to give them a little grace because of their previous success. And we'll see how that plays. This one could potentially make me happy because of what this team meant to my grandfather. The
Chubby?
Chicago Cubs, I got busting out into the 90 range, 93 and 69 as central champs. The Milwaukee Brewers, you know they're not going to make any moves at the deadline, so forget that.
Well, now
88
they
and
got
74.
Chester the Molester pitching for them, so
Yes, indeed. Nestor Cortez is a Brewer.
I hate him.
I've heard. Yes. Pittsburgh Pirates, definitely another candidate for NL Cy Young Paul Skeens. I got them 83 and 79. The St. Louis Cardinals, a couple under 500. They are not who they used to be. And the hapless Cincinnati Reds at 73 and 89. I'm sorry, Jose, that you have to play there. Good character guy for my Yankees, but I think it was the proper move to move on from him. But hell of a teammate, hell of a leader, and a true professional because never complained once about losing playing time and taking it upon himself to be a quality mentor to young Austin Wells. So we appreciate you, Jose, and we wish you well out in Cincinnati.
Do you have the Dodgers losing any games?
Not too many. The Los Angeles Dodgers, 110 and 52. They could shatter for greatest record in the history of baseball, considering playoffs as well. I've got the San Diego Padres at 99 and 63. Think about their record. That's a really good season and still finishing that far out. Diamondbacks 20 over 500. However, it will not be good enough to make the postseason. The Giants 88 and 74 and the Rockies 20 under 500.
Think about what you just said, right? And this is why I said to you, I don't understand still how Corbin Burns went to Arizona. They'll be 20 games over 500 and they'll miss the playoffs. And it's crazy. But then if you look at this division, right, you have 4 teams in here that are perennially in the mix for things. Even the Diamondbacks.
And I mean, dude, you can make an argument going back to last year's playoffs that before the Padres found out that Game 5 started an hour earlier than it did, they were the biggest threat to the Dodgers in last year's playoffs. You guys were admirable, and we were admirable, but I think the Padres legitimately did the best against the Dodgers last year.
Well, what I was going to say is it's crazy. National League West has 4 teams that, if you move them into other divisions, could win completely or compete for second place. Then you look at the American League West, and you have 2 teams that shouldn't be allowed to play baseball anymore.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And even the National League's worst, which I have projected to be the Rockies, are still leaps and bounds better than what I believe the White Sox will be this year. Rich, is this the year that Aaron Judge gets over the many bad Octobers?
I don't know. I think some people are built for postseason and some aren't. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about him. He is a true old school Yankee. Listen, if the Yankees continue to build an organization, a team that they put out on the field that's contingent upon him being a linchpin in the postseason, then it's as much their fault as it is his.
That's a reasonable answer. I am
Can,
optimistic that he can turn it around, but I do think that is a reasonable answer.
if he
One of the
gets
toughest
there,
places.
everybody else has to step up.
Yeah, I like the answer. I do. Because prior to the 1 year of having the great Juan Soto, Judge wore a lot of hats, playing out of position in center field and playing it at a high level, playing hurt, playing through a lot of injuries, to your point about being an old school Yankee. So as a Yankee fan, I do appreciate the shout. But bottom line is, just because I love the guy and just because I'm a huge Yankee fan, I don't ignore some of the stuff that's tough. And Aaron Judge has to step up in October. But yes, some help would be needed as well. And too many guys just were too quiet. And, that's a credit to the Dodgers as well. The Dodgers were the better team. I make no excuses. However, if Aaron Boone doesn't make a blunder in game one, and if we don't have the worst inning in the history of the World Series, I still think the series would have won 7. Having said that, I still think we would have lost because the Dodgers were the better team. I want to be humble on that because it's the truth. Rich, before we get out of here quickly, New York Knicks, do you think that they missed a grand opportunity to add some much-needed bench talent?
We
do miss Dante DiVincenzo. That's kind of where I'm going with that. I love Cat, but I hope Dante runs right back the second he hits free agency again.
I think in typical fashion, the way the teams run, that their starters play a lot of minutes, and I think that it's going to start to wear down. I mean, if you remember the playoffs last year, it was definitely the bench guys that were coming in and picking up some of those minutes. But I don't know. I feel like it's a different team. I think they're a bit more aggressive. I think Josh Hart is, and it's not anything that everyone else isn't saying, but is the heartbeat of this team. And I'm excited.
He's got that Charles Oakley thing going on in a newer era of basketball. I couldn't agree any more with that statement, Rich.
All right, my man. I hope to see you in July when the Mets beat the Yankees.
Yeah, plan on that. Expect that. I'm going to be there. Now, let me ask you, Rich, the 4th is in Queens or is it in the Bronx?
No, it's in Queens.
All right, bro. Let's do it. And I think the 7 line got rid of that one douche flute, so I don't got to worry about talking to him again.
Yeah.
But got to say this, honestly. I was amongst the 7 line, and outside of getting, quality ribbing, good bunch of people, we had a blast. And it's exciting. New York could potentially end up being in the Fall Classic. And it's something great for baseball when both New York teams are relevant. I know my guy right here would agree on that. For my brother from another mother, Mr. Richard Dorney, I am your host, Richie Hicks. Please make it a point, like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Rich, have a great rest of your day. Tell the girls I said hi.
Later, kid.